Thank you very much. You have enriched me very briefly. Our topic is on ethics and spirituality in management. In fact, I need not comment anything about spirituality now, that it has been so clearly and so lucidly placed before you by Professor Krishna. So I'll come straight away to ethics. Professor Krishna has also very rightly pointed out that it is unless you have this spiritual understanding of life and reality, and more particularly egolessness, it will not be possible to practice ethics. I fully agree. There's no question of any disagreement, because as he says, this is the truth. It's so very clear. But then, ethics adds on a few more dimensions, which in my view are equally relevant in the management context, and therefore I'll briefly try to touch upon those aspects. In a way, ethics and spirituality are certainly very much close to each other. They are synergistic. They are both necessary, but the sufficiency in practical life comes when the spiritual is added along with the ethical. In a way, spirituality addresses the person, the actor, and ethics addresses the normative ethics part of it, separate from virtue ethics, addresses on the rules or the norms for conduct in social situations, in practical situations. How should we decide? Having a spiritual bent and a egolessness, I would be a good instrument, a good human being. But in order to do good, to be good and to do good, there we need to slightly distinguish. The two are certainly very much close to each other. But to be good does not, if you are good, does not necessarily tell you what is the right thing to do in a particular situation. And that's the kind of situations which managers or all of us in practical life, whether it's family life, organizational life, or collective life of society in which we work and live, we come up with these issues. It becomes very difficult to decide what is the right thing to do in this particular situation. And that is where ethics develops its ideas, its theories, its normative principles, and provides some guidance to the individuals to tackle with them. Therefore, ethics is both personal, individual, as well as social construct. It is a social part which is of greater concern to us for practical managers. Because organizations, after all, the object of management is to manage organizations in an effective and efficient manner. And therefore, we have to work in the social domain, in the practical domain, because all organizations are social constructs. Society has created it. Society permits the operation of the organizations, whether they are business organizations or whether they are non-business organizations, private organizations or public organizations in any sector. And therefore, society facilitates even business organizations. It is the process of education and the whole paraphernalia. Society regulates it. And therefore, all organizations are social constructs, and hence, ethics and spirituality, ethics is perhaps closer for practical applications to managers. Now, if it is a social construct, why does society create, permit, operate these organizations? Because it values them. It attaches value to the activities which these organizations perform. To serve the society, therefore, to fulfill the expectations of the society is a moral obligation on all organizations. I could enlarge it slightly and say that to advance, after all, functions are to be performed for two purposes. One is to carry on the activities of the society, more importantly, to advance the society. We are a developing society. We want to develop, we want to advance, and therefore the purpose of the larger goal of any organization in the ethical sense ought to be promotion of social and human well-being through their activities. The problem why most of the organizations are not able to function up to the ethical standard expected is because the goals are defined rather narrowly. If we define for the organizations the goals like serving the society, advancing social and human well-being, and within this umbrella large goal, all other our smaller goals, targets to be met, expansion to be done, market share to be increased, profit margins to be enhanced, employee satisfaction, morale to be improved, all must be embedded within it. At least it should not be contrary to it. And that is where I would suggest that for managers, we should focus on a theme. That is what I will be talking about, ethics and human values in management. Now, I have introduced a new term, human values, which is not in our title, and therefore it's incumbent on me to give an idea of what I mean by human values. Just as the spiritual is interpreted in various ways, human values too are interpreted in a variety of ways. Briefly, human values are those values which make human life valuable, which add worth to it, which give dignity to it, which make us truly and fully human. The spiritual and the ethical together make us truly and fully spiritual. Therefore, spirituality and ethics, in one way, in my way of looking at it, are both human values, essential human values. Now, this goal is what ought to be: serving the society, advancing the well-being. There is a difference between what is and what ought to be. In fact, that difference is so very glaring that it calls for attention. And therefore, what is the present view, or by and large the general perception, in which the organizations, by organizations I mean the technical and the economic or techno-economic organizations which the managers would be called upon to manage. So modernity in general and techno-economic organizations in particular, how do they view human persons? How do they view their ethical roles? And if we reflect upon them, my own observations, which I put it before you, that human persons have only instrumental value. That is, they are valuable only in terms of the functions they perform for the organization. Not they are valuable in themselves. Instrumental values and end values is a very sharply defined concept. So this is reflected in the terminologies we use. How do we refer to human person in all his glory, in all his spirituality, in all his dignity, in the context of organizational work? He is a worker, a laborer, a specialist, a consumer, an investor, a partner, vendor. Nowhere we are looking at the human person in his totality. And when you have instrumental relationships, an attitude of looking at the other human person merely as a means to my betterment, then human values will be difficult to establish. The second view is these human persons with whom we interact, they are only need-driven creatures. Give them more money, they will work more. Give them more dignity, treat them, oh, you are nice, we are caring for you, they will do more work. So they have economic needs, they have social needs, they have psychological needs, and these are to be fulfilled. A very celebrated theory, Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs, refers to, paints a picture of human person only in terms of needs. In fact, the basis of it was laid by Adam Smith, the originator, the father of modern economics, which is the basis of all these organizations we have, when he said you have to appeal to the self-interest of the workers in order to get production out of them, and not to their sense of values, not to their sense of dignity. So in fact, the whole structure of our modern techno-economic enterprises is based upon this assumption of man. I would say this is a depersonalized and a reductionist view of the human person.